Dr. Lanhee Chen joins us with some insights, research fellow at the Hoover Institution, also director of domestic policy studies and a lecturer in the public policy program at Stanford University. And Dr. Chen, as always, great to have you with us.
Craig, good to be with you.
This is a race that's turning out to be quite interesting. I suppose if we had asked most political observers, say, a month or two ago, we would have thought, yeah, chances are that Gavin Newsom is going to remain right where he is through the end of his term. Now it's not looking like that's as quite likely as it used to be. What do you think is the abiding driving force here as to why so many Californians are upset with this guy? And the other quick question I'll ask you pull out your crystal ball there. Talk to me about who you think the chances are for the front runner.
Well, I'll make a couple observations, Craig. I think, first of all, it's going to be a remarkably close election. I don't think we thought it was going to be that close when this all first started. I think people figured, look, it's a Democratic state. Gavin Newsom's probably okay. But, in reality, a lot of people are very upset about what's going on in California. We've got wildfires. We've got homelessness out of control. We've got high cost of living. We have water shortages. And I think for all those reasons, people are thinking about who's responsible, who's to blame for that. And I think Gavin Newsom does bear some responsibility for it. I think that's the reason why people are looking very seriously at potentially recalling it. So I think it's going to be close. In terms of who I think ends up replacing him, there's a number of candidates out there who I think could be very strong. Our old friend Larry Elder, of course, is somebody who I think is worth watching. Kevin Faulconer, the former mayor of San Diego, and others as well. But I don't know who's going to win that replacement vote. But I do think, Craig, the initial vote in terms of recalling Newsom is going to be very, very close.
Do you see this continuing to be close, or is there a chance it might gain more momentum, particularly as kids are going back to school and there's growing frustration over the way the governor has handled COVID-19?
Yeah, I think it very well could get even closer. One of the rules in an election like this is it's all about where the energy is. It's all about where the enthusiasm is. And the enthusiasm to recall Gavin Newsom is growing. And I think for that reason, the election is going to end up being a whole lot closer than I think anybody expected. And in fact, can get even closer. I saw a poll recently, Craig, you may have seen the same poll, that actually has Newsom, the people who favor recalling Newsom in the lead. 51% of those responding said they'd recall him, and just 46% said that they would keep him in office. So that is a big surprise for me, but certainly indicates that, a lot of people are done with one-party rule in Sacramento.
Yeah, I certainly can see that, and I also can see this being potential death keel on Gavin Newsom's political future. If he winds up getting recalled and replaced by a conservative Republican, he may have the same future politically as Gray Davis did, and that is, time to ride off into the sunset, go run your winery, go do something different. I want to pivot real quick, because I know our time is short, to another re-election-related topic. We're looking a bit ahead, I understand, but 2022, the controller seat will be up here and available in California, and our listeners may not be aware of it, but you have officially put your hat in the ring. This is an interesting position. It's not one that has much influence when it comes to policy making, but the one thing the controller in California can and does do and should do, and that is provide some serious oversight in a state that sorely lacks oversight and transparency. And if folks don't believe me, just look at all the EDD fraud that went on when you had prisoners applying for not only stimulus checks but unemployment checks to the tune of millions of dollars, and we have yet to unravel that mess.
Well, Craig, you're right. The Office of Controller, which I've declared my candidacy for, is think of it as the Chief Accountability Officer, the Chief Financial Officer of the state of California. And one of the things I want to do is I want to give voters, I want to give taxpayers an eye into what's going on in Sacramento. I want them to know exactly how the state's spending its money. I want them to know how programs are doing. And I'll bet that a lot of people will get very upset when they realize we're spending tens of billions of dollars to fight homelessness, and yet that problem's gotten worse. We're not spending nearly enough on things like fighting wildfires. And these are things that people need to know about. And so I'm running for controller to provide that accountability and transparency. And I think it has the potential to be a very important office, one that I think a conservative, a fiscal conservative, can potentially do well in. Because, as I said earlier, I think people in the state have had it with the same old politics. So I'm looking forward to the campaign ahead. Hope people will visit my website at chenforcalifornia.com and check out what I'm doing and hopefully support my efforts.
In some ways, I'd almost say you're overqualified for this position based on you have multiple degrees, both in law and poli-science. I will ask you two closing questions, two things that maybe strikes against you. One is Republican running in a democratically controlled state. Does that bother you?
It doesn't, and I think the reason why it doesn't is because folks who are in California now, they want to check on the one-party monopoly in Sacramento. And if we aren't successful in this recall election this September, there's going to be a lot of folks out there who still want to have some way of checking and balancing against what's happening up there. And so I think actually the fact that I am of a different party, I'm a Republican, that actually may work in my favor. So I feel pretty good about it. I also think, listen, Republicans need to do a better job of communicating all over the state about what it is we're trying to do. And so for that reason, I think I can outperform some of the previous candidates that have run from my party.
And again, that notion of being able to bring to the table your expertise that will provide not just the oversight, auditing, and ultimately transparency and reduction of waste and fraud in a state that earns as much as we do through taxes, spends as much as we do through taxes. It's high time that there's a greater degree of accountability back to the very people that are doing all that tax paying in the first place. Final question. One other potential liability. You're a diehard Dodgers and Lakers fan, and you're going to be running in Northern California, which is kind of Niners and Warriors territory. Any liability there, Lanhee?
Well, in the words of Popeye, I is what I is. And, I'm not running away from it. And, I get all sorts of great comments from Giants fans on my Twitter feed. That's totally fine. We'll see who's on top in October, and if it's the Giants, I will tip my cap to them.
Yeah, my engineer just said, time to take him off the air. Hey, Dr. Chen, we always appreciate your time and your insights, and we'll be, no doubt talking a lot between now and 2022 as you head into the election. And again, we wish you much success, and thank you again for your insights related to our upcoming gubernatorial race here in California. There's Dr. Lanhee Chen. He is again the Director of Domestic Policy Studies and a lecturer in the Public Policy Program at Stanford University and a research fellow at the Hoover Institution.